Hey, I'm Nick Von Brack, and this is the Record Podcast. Thanks for checking out another episode. For those of you who have not checked out the podcast before, this is a podcast, a show where I talk to musicians and people in the music industry about their stories, how we know each other, kind of peeling back the curtain on being in bands and in that scene and what it's all about. And for those of you who have checked out the show before, thanks for coming back. Make sure to follow me and the podcast on Facebook, on SoundCloud, leaving ratings, reviews on iTunes, Instagram, Twitter. It's all there. Everything is all there out in the world. Just find the podcast out there and follow or friend it, because all that shit, it all helps. But to those of you who already do, thank you. Coming off of last week's episode with Keith Leighton of Empire Was Lonely Estate and Count Your Lucky Stars Records, I have a giveaway. So we did a giveaway with an Empire record, and got a winner for that. That is Sean, or at Rabbit Claw on Twitter. So congrats to you. I'll get in touch with you and we'll figure out how to get you that record. But congrats on that one. And this week, before we get into the episode, I can't stop saying the royal we. Before I get into the episode, I'm going to show a little preview of another podcast I'm going to be on coming up. It is the Misaligned podcast, and the host is Deanna Chapman. I talked to her just this past week, and I got into some stuff about the podcast, Dr. Manhattan, and all kinds of other good stuff. But here's a little preview of that.
You know, with you, I had started listening to the Record Podcast before we had talked about you being on this episode, and then I went and listened to Dr. Manhattan's self-titled. I actually did that today. I was a little late on it, but I was like, all right, I have to listen to at least one release so I sound like I know what I'm talking about.
That was probably the one to listen to. I mean, it's our first, released into the world kind of a thing, aside from demos and EP, and that's the one that probably most people know about more than anything. So it's probably if you would have asked, I probably would have said to start there.
Yeah, and it was the first thing that popped up on Apple Music, so I was like, all right, this is the one.
Yeah, that works out too.
Yeah, so why don't we go ahead and dig into Dr. Manhattan a little bit? You guys ended up on Vagrant Records back in, 2006, 2007? How did that really happen for you guys?
Yeah, so our manager at the time, Mike Bacta, he managed us and some other Chicago bands, Wax on Radio, some other ones. When we kind of, got aligned with him, he started pushing, us. And so the album was done, basically. Like when we met him, I think we were finishing the album. And once the album was done, mixed and mastered, that's what we started bringing to labels. And he knew people at Vagrant and some other labels that size and a couple of the majors. And we eventually started getting, reps coming to shows and stuff, and we'd meet and hang out. Actually, the first big bite we had, this is going to kill me. There was a label. They're not a label anymore. I think Scary Kids Scaring Kids used to be on it. Oh, God, I got to look this up real quick.
No worries.
I can talk still at the same time. But so, we started going out to dinners and stuff like that. After we had a big Metro show, and we went out with, kind of just random people to dinners and stuff and hanging out. And eventually, Vagrant came around. I think we went to Lou Malnati's in the city and had pizza and hung out with Dan Gill, who was the guy who ended up signing us. And we really hit it off with him. He seemed to have the right idea with what we wanted. And for me personally, it was like a huge thing, because one of the first big albums I got into was when my buddy Sean brought over A Year on the Streets, which is the Vagrant compilation. And then after that, Another Year on the Streets, which was when Alkaline Trio, Saves the Day, Get Up Kids was all on it. So that was like a big thing for me. And so then Vagrant, we're eventually, we're talking to Vagrant, and I'm like, okay, this is weird. Like, I know most of my life I believed it's not predetermined, but that's a weird thing that just happened. And So then, at the same time, we were talking to Vagrant. This guy, Andrew McGinnis, these two guys, Andrew McGinnis and Pete Jaberga from Epic Records, which is, a major label. I think Modest Mouse was on at the time and stuff. Those guys came to a show and they were super into us. And so we were kind of talking to both labels at the same time, and we were going back and forth between Vagrant, smaller in quotes, smaller label, and, Epic, which is a major. And eventually we just decided, we're like, well, we feel like if we go to a major, we're going to kind of get swept under the rug. If we don't do well on the first album, that's it. Then, it'll kind of be the famous story of major label band.
Right.
So we talked to Vagrant about that, and they said, no, we want to grow you. We know you're a small band, and that's like part of the allure, and we know what to do with you. We've had this band, and we feel good about this. So we all agreed on it, and we signed with Vagrant, and at the time it felt really good. Like I said, especially for me, I had that emotional connection to Vagrant, and so it just all kind of made sense. And the first label I was talking about was Immortal Records, which
okay.
I think it was Immortal. It was. I just know they had no, that sounds like it's too big. So, this is me being not knowing what I'm talking about. I should have looked this up right before I did this, but that it was a label that ended up folding actually, and it was pretty much right after we had talked to them. We were like, okay, this seems like it's cool. I mean, the label doesn't have really bands we like on it, but the guy's really nice, and, it seems like a cool thing. And then, a year later, they folded. So, all right, I guess that was good. We didn't go after that.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Let's get to my guest this week. He is named Mikey Russell, and he is from about 1,000 Chicago bands, some of which include Wax on Radio, 504 Plan, Sons, Campdogzz, Wedding Dress. I mean, we get into all of that. We get into every one of his bands. We just kind of take the whole journey. We get into some other stuff too. What it's like to play guitar upside down. It's kind of his signature if you're not familiar with him. His connection to Fall Out Boy, pranks involving both of our bands, even towards each other, touring in a school bus. He's another musician in the world who I get to talk to about the oddity that is touring and living in a school bus. Drama and bands, and that could connect to a previous band mentioned in this little list, and a bunch more. A lot of it is just kind of taking the journey of all the bands he's been in Chicago over the years, and that ranges from the suburbs to the city since the early 2000s, and pretty much every band I've been in has crossed paths with one of his bands, opening for them or playing alongside them, and I've known him a really long time, but it was good to just kind of get in depth with him. You meet these people over time, and you say hey, and you hang out, and you chat a little bit, and you have all these run-ins, and you think you know them better, but then you get to have a sit-down like this and a show like this and really get into it. So it was good. It was good to jump into all that stuff. So, here is my interview with Mikey Russell.
You're coming through my Bluetooth speaker. You sound great.
I'm going through a nice little mic on my end, so I'm trying to make it as pleasant sounding as possible.
Wow, I should have thought of that. I could have got a little mic going and stuff.
No, this is good, man. The way that Skype does it always sounds pretty good, actually, even if it's on a phone or through a mic. So I got no problems with that.
Cool. Your profile picture is also pretty great.
It's hard for me to remember even where I got it from. I feel like, I don't know if you know who Daniel Good is, but I feel like I probably got that picture from him somehow at some point. So
it kind of looks like Daniel.
I'll let him know that. I'll let him know that he's been told that.
Yeah, were you at the big the wedding party?
Yeah, we came a little later with the little one, my wife and the little one, but we hung out for a little while. It was super cool. It was a nice little relaxed shindig.
Yeah, Matt Everett was telling me all about it. He's playing in Campdogzz now, so he.
Oh, nice.
He came to a practice and he was telling me all about the swimming game that they were playing.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Oh yeah, well, it sounded pretty cool. But yeah, that sounded really fun. Daniel's a really cool guy. I like that guy.
Yeah, it was a surprise. I don't know, are you familiar with Drew Curtis?
Yeah, I love Drew Curtis.
Okay, so I don't know why it never connected in my brain that he might be there. I just didn't even think of it because I haven't seen him in so long.
That's how he rolls.
Yeah,
man.
I said to somebody, I was like, I thought he was just a specter. I thought he was like a ghost now. And sure enough, he came out of nowhere and just appeared. And my heart was just so full of joy. I was like, oh my God. Like, I didn't even think about seeing him.
He was probably in town for like one day or something and just made it there.
He had just come in from Ireland and he was just he flew out that night. He left early to fly to Detroit because he had to meet back up on tour. I was like, this is exactly how you are.
DC, yeah. I had some friends threw, Jess from Campdogzz threw a surprise party for me for my birthday in April.
Yeah.
And, it was really cool seeing everybody. And like, I'm walking around to everybody and thanking him for coming. And then Drew Curtis is there. And I'm like, what are you doing here, man? And he just was like, I was around. So yeah, you never know when you're going to see that guy, but I think that's the best part because it's always so awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. And my wife looked at me because at the end he came up, he kissed me on the cheek a couple times and left. She's like, who is that? Like she had never even heard of him or met him. And he's like, and he was kissing you. I was like, you know what? That may be the last time I ever see him. I don't know if I'll ever see him again.
Yeah, he has to do that because he doesn't know like when he's going to see you again.
I was like, I could see him next week or never again, and that that would just be his way, and that would be perfectly fine because that's how he goes.
Love that, dude.
It was perfectly Drew to have it happen that way. But yeah, that was the surprise of the evening for me. And but the rest of the night it was really cool. Yeah, I saw Matt and some other people. But yeah, that to me was like, what is happening?
Yeah.
But yeah, man. So just a little prelude. If we get into, I edit this, so if the call drops, I'll just edit it in. And if there's any stuff you don't remember, or don't want to get into, just say it, and I'll make the edits on the other side of it. So
cool.
No stress. But seeing as you have an incredibly long list of musical projects, we could probably make this podcast anywhere from 1 to 3 hours just getting into everything. So
yeah, my stepdad recently told me I should write a book on how to start a band.
I don't know. Is that a compliment? I don't know what that's saying.
Well, he's funny. He's really Southern. He's making fun of me, but yeah. I thought it was really fun.
That's perfect.
I was on the ground laughing. It's
yeah.
Yeah, I should. Yeah, that sounds cool.
Well, so I'll start it with how, at least I don't specifically remember our first interaction, but if I were to guess, if I can gather what my shitty memory can bring to my brain, is that we
remember.
You what's that?
I remember.
Okay, well then you go for it because mine would just be like a blurry few pieces.
Okay, Wax on Radio was playing a show in your guys' neck of the woods. I forget the venue, but it was like a big venue.
Clearwater Theater?
Clearwater Theater?
Yeah, it's out in like West Dundee, like out kind of not really, there's like nothing, no other venues. There's not even a venue anymore, but yeah, that was like a big one out there.
It's like a theater. It's
yep.
probably that.
Yep.
Yeah. This is the only time I ever played a show there, but we were playing, there, and Bacta was real into you guys at the time, I think, or one of the people with us, maybe it was Sammy.
Yeah,
it's like, you got to see this band. They're so awesome. And I definitely remember I was standing up on like the ledge thing, and I watched you guys start playing, and I think you guys were the first people that I ever saw to have somebody at the front of stage have a floor tom.
Okay, yeah, Andrew,
that was the thing that struck me the most. That was like, why didn't I think of that? That's awesome. That's such a good idea.
Yeah.
Like yeah, and you guys blew me away.
Oh, thank you.
We did 1,000 shows together.
Yeah. So actually, you know what? I'll go even further back. So we ran into each other even other times before that. And if I can recall, the very first time, if my memory serves me correctly, it was in Arlington Heights, I believe, at some like Park District not a VFW, but kind of like a Park District place. And I was
not Knights of Columbus.
Not Knights of Columbus. It was
right. You remember that?
Yeah, I don't know if I was ever in a band that played at the Knights of Columbus, but I've been to shows there, but I was in a band before Dr. Manhattan with Adam. We were in a band called Musket Arm with our buddy Ryan.
Oh,
yes,
dude,
and and we played with 504 Plan not only at the Iron Lake Village Hall, but also I think our first show but I think the first show we opened for you guys was some sort of Park District, Arlington Heights, or like Elk Grove Park District kind of thing. And I think you guys were headlining, and we were just like one of the first couple bands to play. But that, if my memory serves me correctly, that was our very first mix my words here. First time our paths crossed. So
and I remember playing a couple times with Musket Arm, right?
Yep.
Playing,
Yep.
And you guys were also pretty weird.
It was par for the course.
Dog days of summer and I have you on my mind. I wish that you were here. You dropped me off that day, the last time I would ever see you. I was so unaware, the image of your band now slowly faded. But when you love somebody, it's hard to explain, hard just to say. To me you mean everything.
But it was really fun to watch and fun to play with. Wow, dude, that's cool. I think I knew that you were in that band, but I totally forgot.
Yeah.
I completely forgot.
Yeah, no worries. It and I don't remember who I was talking to, but we were going on about, I think it might have been actually Johnny Minardi, which I'm sure we'll get into him on this talk as well. But like we just talked about how it's a bummer that, you know, for us, the Iron Lake Village Hall was the place. It was like, it didn't matter what was going on. We could always book a show there for $50. If we weren't playing a show, we would just go there to see who's playing. And that was always like a thing to do. And that was the same with like, you know, Knights of Columbus and all these like park districts that would just be like, let the kids play a show. And it was so much of that. And now, I mean, obviously there probably is still some of that I'm just not aware of. But I mean, at the time that was like every park district, every VFW and Moose Lodge, like they were always having bands just play shows. And it was so, I mean, it was great. It was like perfect. It was like a perfect way to just get into all kinds of new music and like start a band.
We played so many shows in that goddamn band. It was crazy. And we went on tour.
Yeah.
Like we did tour, but 95% of them were just in the suburbs and in the city.
Yeah.
And you could do that.
Right.
Like I think about it now, like exactly the same sentiment that you and Minardi are talking about. It's like you think about doing that now, you can't do that.
No.
But then, dude, we were playing every suburb from Palos Heights to way up in Wakanda and all that stuff, and we would just go out and hammer out shows like all the time.
and at that, and especially in that scenario, that was like you weren't really worried about, are people gonna see the same show? Because typically, like people would travel, but you would get like, you know, a 75-85% new crowd of kids who had never heard of you, so you could really like play 3 or 4 shows in a weekend, or like, you know, 6 to 8 shows a month, and just like not see the same people and over again.
Yeah. Totally.
It was a perfect way to, like get your feet wet and that stuff. But so I guess since we're starting in there, we can go back further. What was 504 Plan the first kind of foray into being in bands for you, or is there like a laundry list of other bands before that?
Well, there was like some hardcore like punk bands, like
sure.
You know, like Bad Brains, Minor Threat type stuff.
Yeah.
Nothing that we ever like played shows or anything. I mean, the first band that I was ever really in that like kind of I think I played one show with them, or maybe 2 shows, was with Mickey and Danny from August Premiere.
Oh, okay.
And that was like my first time like actually having a serious band, like to the point where I remember at first when we first started playing together, we thought we had to have the same kind of guitar for them to sound right. But the problem was we didn't have tuner pedals, so we just weren't in tune.
Oh.
Like that bad.
Right, yeah.
But then that kind of like fizzled out, and then me and Nick started playing together in 504 playing. And so I guess technically the second band, but not really. It's the first that I ever got to experience all of the cool things about being in a band.
Sure. And you and so not only was 504 playing, and especially at that time, like for us as a band that would open up for you, like 504 playing, if they were playing a show, it was a big deal. Like you guys were either headlining or you were main support or whatever it was. But that was like, if we had an opportunity to get on a show with you guys, we would, or if you played the Village Hall, that was a big deal. So.
Now that all the smoke is clearing, the plan has been destroyed, and I'm back here in puddles of what was my moonlight. The only thing that kept me safe from tears and pictures of you ran through my head. And now it's time for me to go back home. In my head, I'm left alone. And now that we're over,
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, and on top of that, you were an anomaly in that people were looking at someone who was like, wait, so he's playing his guitar, but it's upside down, and that like people could not figure that out. So how did you figure out that was the way that you started playing guitar?
Well, I started out playing drums.
Oh, really? See, I didn't even know that.
Yeah, drums is my first instrument. I just did a string of shows on drums.
Oh, nice.
Actually, yeah. But it honestly, like, it was too loud to play when we moved. It was too loud, and my stepdad
Drums
was
are
like,
too loud.
no, like, that's too loud. He worked late and stuff, and he wasn't down with it, and he just told me to play one of his guitars, and I just started messing around with it, and I really wanted to make songs. It sounds weird and silly, like, for a little, like, a 12-year-old to want to make songs, but I really, I wanted something more musical, like, whatever that means when you're like 12. And,
right.
And I just started like diving into it. And then when I got comfortable playing the songs that I was learning at the time, like I got the opportunity to get my own guitar, and they asked me if I wanted a lefty, and I kind of felt like I would have to relearn. So I just stuck with the righty, and, I've never gone back. I've thought recently about stringing one of my guitars left-handed, but it's just how I'm comfortable playing it. And people all the time always say like, "Oh my God, it's so crazy." I don't think that it is at all. I think that
that's natural.
Learning the guitar is kind of a crazy thing, like, because it's a complicated instrument. But I don't think it was any harder for me to learn than it was. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I guess playing that sort of setup, do you run into any kind of problems or more hurdles to jump over when you have issues or anything? Or is it just for you, like you said, it's the way you learn, so you kind of know how to work around that stuff?
I'm pretty used to it now. Like, a couple things that kind of, I was in the studio like day before yesterday, and we were getting a guitar tone, and Nick, the engineer, was like, actually, like, maybe if you turn down your guitar volume a little bit, like, we can get it better out of the amp. And I was like, well, I have to keep it on 10 because, the knobs are on the other side of the guitar for me. They're like where my arm is.
Right.
I have kind of adapted playing my downstroking so that it constantly turns the knobs up.
Oh.
Because when I first started playing live, I would be turning the guitar down while I was playing, you know? So, like, now, like, that's something that I have to kind of roll with. And in 504 playing shows, man, back then when I hadn't built up the, like, unbelievable elephant like callus on my pointer finger, my picking hand pointer finger.
Yeah.
Like, the high strings being on top, my finger would hit those and it would rip the skin open.
Shit.
And I would bleed all over my guitar, and like And it was like, I was in high school, so it was like, check this out.
I was gonna say that probably made for some cool ass shows.
Yeah, like I think that I at least impressed a couple people with it, but
Sure.
it was actually just me cutting myself using the instrument. It wasn't cool. but like yeah, those are the only two things that really make it any more like kind of difficult,
And so when you guys start 504 Plan, when you're getting going, how long long after you start do things start happening, or how long are you a band before you start noticing shows are getting bigger, or like there's like a bit of a buzz about you guys?
It's all it like is that's 15 years ago
Sure.
now, which isn't that long, but like I remember it being pretty quick.
Yeah.
I remember it being pretty like after maybe like a year, I think, of us playing and figuring out like that we need tuner pedals, that we need like all this stuff, kind of need to play a good show.
Yeah.
Not sound like total garbage, really.
Right.
Like once you know how to like you play on stage, I think that after that we kind of started getting cool stuff. But like at the time, dude, when you say that it was cool for your band to play, that really like that's awesome. But I don't want to sound like ungrateful or anything, but at that time we thought we were just poking our head above water.
Yeah.
We were always like, we gotta try to get on this bigger show. There was I think that the biggest thing about that band that was cool was that I took like lifelong away from it was kind of just that work ethic and the DIY mentality that we had in that band, that we always just wanted to do more stuff. Like the first tour that we went on, man, I know Tom and Nick and whoever listens to this, I want to try to get my facts straight. It was a long time ago. But like, I think the first show was in New Mexico.
Damn.
We didn't know.
Who routed that?
We had no idea.
Right, yeah.
We knew we wanted to go play the West Coast, and we just went. And it was like an unreal, like 30-hour drive to the first show. Like it's something that's so basic for touring bands now. It's like you would never do that, but we didn't know. We were just trying to do shit.
Sure. Yeah, that's crazy to think about.
Yeah, it was nuts. I think Minardi was on that tour.
Yeah, so that I want to get into that. At what point does Minardi just slide his way through the door and into your guys' lives?
He got us a show at a place called Lee Street Billiards with his band. I'm gonna try to get everything straight here. I think they covered Slipknot though.
Oh yeah, we talked about that. He had a band that was like basically just covered Korn and Slipknot and shit.
Did you? Okay, so that's true. Okay, yeah. So
what was the name of it? It was something in the Poos or something. It was some name that I was like just blown away by.
I don't remember, but I remember he played. I think he played a 7-string Ibanez guitar.
Yeah, you remember exactly because we talked about that.
Okay, and he definitely had braces.
Yeah,
I think he had a retainer at the time, and he was like just this little dude that was like, you know how he is. He's got that like jovial presence to him that like first time you meet him, you just want to hang out with the guy, And I think that 504 Plan played and somebody stole some of the pool balls or broke something, and they never had a show there again.
That's all it takes.
Yeah, and somehow Johnny didn't get in trouble for it, or at least he didn't tell us about it, and he just started like kind of working with us. I think that we were the first band that he put a record out of.
Yeah,
I think so.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah, and he came on a tour with us, and he was just really, really supportive, really, really cool that early to have somebody like take interest in your band and start trying to like help you like work the band. That was really awesome.
All right, and so how long is 504 Plan a band for?
504 Plan was a band for probably like 4 years or so.
Okay.
I think that we started in like 2000, maybe 2001, started playing shows and broke up in 04 probably.
Okay. And what happens around that? Is that just kind of a natural thing? You all just go your separate ways? Or what
Yeah, I think John and I wanted to kind of do different stuff than Nick and Tom, and that was the time of college, like when you have to ask your bandmates, like, you know, or everybody's thinking what they're going to do in college, you know.
Yeah.
And it wasn't as much of like just a fun thing to go play in a punk band. It was more like there was serious kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And the band had bills, like just stuff like that I feel like was kind of stressful, and it kind of just ran its course a little bit, you know. We're all still great friends. I just took a trip out to LA to move John out to LA. He moved there from Elgin, and I drove across the country with him. And
oh, nice.
Yeah, and Tom is Campdogzz booking agent, and we're, you know, I talked to Nick here and there. He lives out in California too, but we're all still buds.
Well, that's good to hear. That warms my heart. Good to hear you guys all still keep in touch.
There was a little chatter about some kind of show, I don't know, like a year ago.
Yeah.
But I was out living on the bus, and you know, everybody lives across the country. Nick and John are in LA, and Tom's in Brooklyn, so it'd be too tough. I
definitely know at least 10 people that would have been doing a backflip to hear that. So
that's cool.
I think I would be remiss to not at least bring up the fact that if anyone knows of the lore of 504 Plan, they'd know that there is the Fall Out Boy connection, and I'd have to get into it, or at least get your take on how that all kind of shook out and what that was all like, just playing at the Knights of Columbus at that time. Like I said, I only went to a couple shows. I never played there, but that place was like electric with some of the shows they had there. So like how...
Yeah. It got really crazy there for a while. I mean, even up until the point that we broke up, I remember I would have to not kidding. Like I would get like a dude from the front, like where the monitors were, cause you play on the floor there,
right?
You know? And I would ask like a dude, like, hey, can you stand in front of the microphone so that it doesn't, because it would just be smashing me in the face because like of the crowd, and it would my like lips would get like bit up on my teeth and stuff, and I'd be like bleeding, and it was just not it was cool, but at the same time I would like ask them to kind of like, hey, can you just like stand here and like push people back and stuff, and like it got really, really wild there. It was very, very fun. It was a killer experience, and as far as those Fall Out Boy dudes, we hung out with them pretty tightly all up through that first, recording of their first record and all of their first shows. And Patrick and I were real close at that time. We've only seen each other a couple times in the last, I don't know, many years. But
right.
We were really tight at that time, and he's a brilliant musician. Had a big impact on me as a player and as a writer and stuff. And just great time to be playing music in Chicago. A lot of other people, not just Fall Out Boy, a lot of killer bands and musicians and dudes were really popping off at that time. And it was very fun to be in like the proverbial, or whatever you want to call it, like scene. I feel like it was a scene. Like people that's a semi-taboo thing to say, because of course it's not New York in the 1970s, but like, it was some kind of scene, and it was cool, and I loved it.
Yeah. I mean, that's like like I said, some of those shows you must have felt like, all right, like if we're not fucking rich and famous in like 5 years, and something fucked up, like, with some of the crazy shit that was going on there. I think
the sentiment after a lot of shows was like, dude, now maybe we can open for Hey Mercedes.
Yeah.
Or something.
Okay.
It was always trying to get to the next
Right.
level.
Right.
You know, that's kind of the whole deal. We were always trying to like do stuff like that.
And so then you guys go your separate ways. And at what point does Wax On come in the picture?
Immediately.
Right after that. Okay.
I mean, within, I think the last 504 Plan show we played was at Metro, and like, I was really writing a lot of like, you know, like, I was trying to bounce back from being like kind of in a punk band because I wanted to be in more of like a musical, like a musicianship band.
Yeah.
You know? Not that the dudes in 504 Plan weren't musicians, but like a prog band, you know, like crazy guitars and stuff.
Right.
And so like I was kind of writing stuff like that. Even for that last show, there was like a big long guitar intro that I did that was like, it's like a whole kind of like spacey guitar solo thing, and it was super Wax on radio. It was not for a 504 Plan show, but I just immediately started working on the entire aesthetic of that band, Wax on Radio, and I think that's the hardest I've ever worked on something in my life. It was like I became instantly obsessed with it, and just really dove into it.
Did you already have those guys in mind for getting a band together, or how did that all piece together?
No, I actually talked to Adam Siska from at that time he was in the Academy I think, or maybe they weren't a band yet, or they were, but I think they were a band, yeah. But anyways, I talked to him about bass players because I've always liked how he plays bass, and he suggested hitting up Harrison.
Okay, yeah.
And so Harrison and I started working on songs like in my garage, just he and I. And and then Leslie Morgenthaler, 504 Plan super fan, who I became friends with and is one of my closest friends this day. I got off the phone with her like a little bit before.
Oh, nice.
I talked to you. She suggested I come see her friend's band, which was this band Farewell Night. And so I go see the friend's band, and Tom Conrad from 504 Plan grew up best buds, like they still spend Christmas together, with Bob Buckstaff.
Oh, Bobby Bunstaff.
Yeah, the big guy. So I go see Bob Buckstaff play, and like, you know, after I pick my mind back up off the floor and shove it back into my head and try to understand what just happened, I would talk to him, and we just hit it off. We just hit it off, and his relationship with Tom was like a big, like I was like, oh, I love Tom, and he was like, you know, I love Tom too. And we started talking, and you know, just after that, we started really writing some stuff. I was kind of playing drums to the parts. In the very, very beginning. Yeah. And then, man, how do we meet Sammy Del Real? I don't know. I think it was Mike Del Principe from Academy Is.
Okay.
He was at that time. He was in that band. So yeah, that band came together just by sheer like friends helping.
Nice.
Like friends, me asking people like, I need this guy, and like people just put that band together, you know. It's like sheer luck.
Yeah. Well, and I feel like, too, like 504 Plan, Wax On, I mean, again, because I don't know the history or the story, but from my perspective, it felt like this band came out of nowhere, and all of a sudden, like, it wasn't just like, oh, it was just like some other band that's playing. Like, it already had buzz and attention and people excited about it, like what seemingly to me was like out the gate. So was that, like, to your memory, was it fairly soon after you guys were going, things were happening, or was it a little longer process?
No, it did feel pretty quick. And, you know, I think there was just kind of like an energy around that band that was pretty frenetic.
Yeah.
I think that that kind of came from just the amount of work that we were putting into it.
Yeah.
I think that like when people see somebody like working their brains out of their head on something, they kind of just pay attention more.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah,
like
that's true.
we were just like, I mean, we practiced every day in that band.
Yeah.
And we took everything so seriously that I think it's the reason that that band lasted such a short amount of time, because it was a pressure cooker, you know.
Right.
The level of expectation for the performances and for like the band was so high that it was unsustainable, you know.
Well, you say such a short amount of time. How long was Wax on a Band?
I think that was another like 3 years or maybe 4 years.
That's crazy to me. And maybe it's just because my knowledge or like experience with 504 playing was much shorter, but I guess I at least feel like I was around for the entirety of that band, so it felt like it was much longer than 3 or 4 years.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it was another real blast of energy, and then
yeah,
you kind of just, I mean, we played Lollapalooza and we were doing a record at that time, and we sent most of the songs to the label, and Iron Mike, Big Mike Bacta.
I've never heard him called Iron Mike. That's great. You have to add that to the list of his nicknames.
What was your guys' nickname for him?
It bounced between Chewbacca and Bactopus. Those are okay. two that we'd use a lot.
Ours were Iron, or what did Harrison called him? Signor Bente Porciento.
That's great.
Yeah. So Mike calls and he's like, the label doesn't want to put out any of the songs for the next record. Like,
Jesus.
Yeah. And I'm like, sorry, did you say none of them? It's like, yeah,
wait, you weren't specific when you said how many, because I think what you said was none.
And so we scrapped them and we wrote another record, and in that time frame just kind of lost our minds. Like, sure, it was just it's really hard to write a record and somebody says no.
Yeah, that's fucking defeating.
Yeah.
And sometimes that inspires, like, you know, okay, I got to make something great. Other times it's just like, fuck it, man. I put so much time and effort into that. Like, I got nothing. I got no more steam.
Well, for us, it was like, no, that's the record,
yeah.
Man. Like, we like it.
Yeah.
And I don't know, like, you know, and things were just, they were hard in that band. It was difficult. It wasn't anybody's fault. It was just the collective subconscious of that band was like, you know, perfection. Yeah. And I'm not saying that we attained perfection at all. I'm just saying that, like,
no, you guys were a very serious band. Like, you could tell, like, even just watching you guys objectively, you could tell you guys were up there not fucking around, and you were all locked in and good at your craft. And then even being in bands or like playing shows with you guys, like, you know, from that angle too, you could tell, like, you had good gear, like you didn't go up there and like throw shit around or not give a shit. Like, yeah, you guys were a serious band. You came to play, and you weren't, yeah, it wasn't a game.
which I eventually didn't like about it. I realized that was the weird thing. And so when you get to the back swing of not liking Wax on Radio, that's when you get Sons.
Yeah. Which
it's like it's the closest thing that I'll ever have to being in some kind of traveling circus or something. I mean, just like a wily group of dudes.
Yeah.
Very, very wily is a good term.
Well, it's so funny to me too, because I at least was in the ether of the end of Wax On, because we had the practice space right across the hall from you guys,
Right.
and right. I don't know. So I've told this story a couple times just from my perspective, but I have yet to talk to any of you guys about this. So this is perfect for this. When we left that studio, so
I know what you're gonna say. Hit me.
So when we got to that place, I don't even know how long we were there. I don't know, maybe 6 months. I think we paid 1 month's rent and then just never paid rent again. So that's first off.
I
And
think it's the same thing.
and
Only 3 months, but same.
yeah. And then as we left, like, we had all this random there was and I do remember there was your guys' band, and you were the only band that we like knew or were friends with, but there was a band down the hall that I'll never forget, just had like, there wasn't a square inch available on the walls because it was just covered in porno, just ripped out like Playboys and shit, and Hustlers and shit. And I was just like, what is even happening in here? But so when we were packing up and leaving, we had all this random shit, and we were like, all right, let's get it all ready. And I think it just started off as a joke, or like we were just bringing stuff out of the room and putting it out in the hall. But your guys' practice space was directly across from us. So I think slowly it just kind of piled in front. And then we were just like making each other laugh, like, oh, we're just going to pile this more and more in front of the door. And then by the end, we just had all this shit in front of your guys' space. And then we just laughed, like laughing our asses off. And we were just like, oh my God, I hope that someday, like, we can get to hear some sort of reaction out of them coming to their space being like, what even is the fucking, what is going on?
Honestly, dude, I remember it, and I think that there was almost no reaction because it was Dr. Manhattan doing it. It was just like, of course they just piled all this shit in front of our door, and I think we just moved it to the side and like just walked it out of there like that for a little while. There was another time that you guys got us at I think it was just Andrew.
I was gonna say, I don't know if I know this one.
I don't know. Like it probably was just him. Bob's Wurlitzer had broken, and we were playing Beat Kitchen. It was like sold out, like big show. We were nervous, and like fuck, the Wurlitzer's broken. What are we gonna do?
Oh yeah,
Andrew, can we use your Nord?
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah. Like, what do you need? And like, okay, a Wurlitzer tone, and then so he like queued up a Wurlitzer tone and saved it in there, and he's like, okay, it's saved under Bob. So like, just go to it, and it'll be good. And when Bob went to it, it was like, it was like an angelic choir singing with like flange on it and stuff, or something like that. All I remember is that he played like 2 chords, and then he was like, nope, and we just played the song without Bob.
I had no idea of that happening. That's incredible.
Yeah, that was pretty funny.
Well, I'm glad you guys don't hate us, because evidently there's a slew of events that occurred that could have allowed you to.
I just saw. So Adam lives on the same block as me.
Okay.
And I just saw him like 2 days ago or whatever. We were sitting outside of practice. He stopped by and said hi, and told him, hey, come up. We're having a party on Sunday. Come hang out. And,
nice.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see him or his brother like often, but they're around. We see each other.
Nice.
Yeah.
And I meant to say this when you said this earlier, but I'm remembering it now, that aside from sharing a manager, we also shared a manager that was the bearer of bad news to both of our bands, saying that our labels did not want to put out our records. So as soon as you said that, Downtown said that to you guys, I just immediately thought of Bach to being like, yeah, Vagrant doesn't want to put out the record. It's like, oh fuck. He's had to have that conversation multiple times in his life.
I'll tell you what, dude. Mike Bachta, he was at one point in my life, I think, the closest person in my life.
Yeah.
And he's still, we'll see each other when we can. We don't see each other very much anymore, but I have seen that dude go to fucking bat for bands. Like, I've seen him in person, like, scream at somebody on the phone. Not that that's a good thing, but like, when you're a band, you want a manager who's a bulldog, like, scream at somebody on the phone and slam it down and like actually like be a manager and like, he did a lot of really cool stuff for that band, and he worked with Sons for a little bit.
Oh, nice.
He was trying to get us a record deal, but it was just kind of it was at the very end of Sons. So
okay, so that transitions into, like you said, Wax on Ends, and you go right into Sons, which you described as some sort of carnival or circus. And by that, do you just mean like just so many members and like moving parts, or?
Oh my God, dude! Our first show, Drew Curtis did sound. Nice. God bless him. He was, and like, dude, he was already kicking ass at that time. He came into the practice space, listened to our set to do the sound for the first show. I mean, when have you had a sound guy that hands-on?
Right, yeah, that's awesome.
Friend, obviously, that's why he did it. But, like, he's just such a... that's why he does what he does. But, like, he came to the practice space to get a listen for it. Dude, we had glockenspiel, we had clarinet, we had a harmonium, we had... There was, like, so many instruments on stage. I think he used, like, most of the inputs in the board at Metro. and it was ridiculous. It was ridiculous. We never played a show with that many instruments again. It sounded great. Yeah. It's just so crazy to think that we were going to pull that off. Yeah. But yeah, like a lot of that band was just kind of a mix of trying to be serious and trying to really like play very, very well, and a lot of just like being silly and crazy and having a shitload of fun. That band was a party band for sure. Yeah. And so this is where my kind of knowledge of bands can get fuzzy, because I feel like since then there's been kind of a slew of bands that all have been happening at the same time, and you've been kind of in and out of all kinds of projects. So what starts to happen now? Because I know of Campdogzz, I know of Wedding Dress, and I'm sure there's probably like 4 other bands I don't even know about. Like, what happens post Sons? Well, so like, Sons, let's see. So Sons started to kind of like fizzle out kind of when Andy broke away to do Ghastly Menace. Okay. And when that started happening, I think like a little bit before that too, Bob and CJ from Sons and Bob from Wax and I did a band called Horned Crow.
Oh, I do remember that.
Yeah, it was like all improvised.
Yeah, I do remember that being a thing.
Short-lived, and we only played like probably 5 or 6 shows or something. Yeah. And then like Aaron came and asked me, he started writing songs. Like he was home from Maps and Atlas's tour, and he came over and showed me some songs and was like, do you want to do a band with this stuff? And I was like, yeah, that sounds awesome. And he and I did a lot of stuff for Wedding Dress for a long time, probably 2 or 3 years, and probably the back year and a half of that was side by side with the band that I started with Jess, Campdogzz.
Anyhow, I know it's not right to make space, 'cause we can't. But far enough around to be in thoughts, I don't need to say no.
'cause you don't know what to call it.
Which now is pretty much my sole thing. Like I Wedding Dress is kind of like not doing anything right now.
Yeah.
We recorded a record, and it's kind of just like hanging out right now, and it'll be our second record, and Lemke's doing all of that wet mouth stuff.
Yeah.
You should have Lemke on.
I'm gonna. We've talked a little bit about doing it, and it'll just be a matter of having it happen. But yeah, I want to get him out and talk about that. And They Found Me, They Named Me, and all his crazy shit. We actually have a funny, goofy story I don't know if he ever told you our little past story. Did he tell you of our history?
He is loaded with stories, so I might have heard it, but
so
I know D-Man and him go pretty deep.
Well, so though this is even before that. This is Musket Arm. So he was in a band. What was his? Oh fuck! I'm gonna hate myself that I don't remember this.
In Visions of Red.
Yes. So in Visions of Red. So when he was in Bartlett, he was in Visions of Red, and that was at the time of band websites having guest books and shit, and like Homestead websites. And for whatever reason, I don't even remember how it started, and I don't even know if he remembers, but like for some reason, and being from Wakanda, I can say, especially at that time, Wakanda had this like small town kind of complex thing of like, if anybody said shit about Wakanda, then like all of a sudden, people are coming out with their pitchforks and their and they wanted to come, they were there for blood. I don't know why, but so at that time, Musket Arm was playing a bunch, and for whatever reason, we were cocky about being a good band, and I think we were supposed to play with them. We did play with them, something. And then there was a whole guest book thing of like, somebody made a comment on one page and then went back the other. And then it became this thing of like Wakanda versus Bartlett. Like there was going to be a big showdown, Jets versus Sharks, and they were going to meet at the Wendy's and like fucking brawl. And for whatever reason, our bands were like in the middle of this, like the reasoning for it. And for a while, it was like very contentious, and not even for really any reason, just like, oh, well, you're from Bartlett and you're from Wakanda, so we're supposed to not like each other. And then
it's like an India-Pakistan.
There must be peace here. And so somehow that all diffuses, and then we cross paths again, and we just like had the biggest laugh over it. Like, what the fuck was that even about? Like, I don't know. So it's whenever, I can't wait to have him on just so we can,
try to get to the bottom of that.
I mean, I just to even go back into it and just smile and laugh and be like, what fucking idiots were we to think that like, I just don't even remember any of it. So that's how our worlds came together.
As soon as you said like back when websites had guest books, like 4 or 5 different embarrassing memories went through my mind.
Give me one. Give me one of them.
Oh geez, there was just so many. I mean, there was I'm not gonna name names.
No.
There was definitely like guest book wars.
Yeah.
Between bands.
Yep. Yeah, because you could write anonymously. It's kind of like a lot of now YouTube, it does attach your name, so there isn't any really anonymity anymore. But like, that was that. It was like you can go on and just be like, fuck this band, and you could say some personal shit, and then you could just dip out of there and like get some shit going.
It was the first like time that like people were way uglier on the internet than they would be in real life. Like stuff you would never say in real life, people would say like on a band's guest book,
right?
Like regardless of if the band was terrible or not. Which at the time that people our age were dealing with websites with guest books, our bands were all probably pretty terrible.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, but like you don't want to hear that.
No.
And like, so it was. Those were the dark ages, man.
And it was so much more personal too, because whereas on YouTube, this could literally be somebody from like across the world who somehow happened on your video. Guest books at the time were like, that person has either been to a show, knows me personally, like had a class with me. Like this is somebody that I've had an interaction with. Like it's even on like a deeper level.
Nobody's stumbling on your Angel Fire guest.
Yeah, our musketarm.cjb.net website. They didn't find that just typing it randomly things.
Exactly. There was no Google, right?
Exactly, right.
Holy shit.
Yeah, so that was even more of a thing of like, okay, who is this fucker? Like, it's not just somebody in the world that you're like, oh, that's a bummer. It's like, this is somebody, I have class with this person. Like, this is somebody who I can pick them out of a lineup. So It was even that much more personal, the guest book hatred at the time.
It's so funny. It's hilarious. No, it's hilarious.
It helps you get that thicker skin, man. You gotta have people tell you suck at least a handful of times to kind of get you ready.
Oh, dude, when I first started singing in 504 Plan, I'm pretty sure Nick begged me to stop. I mean, maybe not begged, but I'm pretty sure he was like, "Dude, we need a different singer."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Dude, give me some time here."
Yeah.
Like, I was like figuring this out. I'm like 16 or whatever, you know? But yeah, you have to go through that gauntlet of people telling you suck to at least get better and keep trying to get better. Like, if you just have a bunch of yes men around you, I always think, you know, like, because I'm going to do this for the rest of my life, and I always think about like the dudes that are like, you know, 60 and they put out a record and it's not good. Like, you listen, you're like, this is not good. Where did it get lost? And I really think part of that is just being surrounded by yes men.
Yeah.
And people that are never going to tell you that it's not good because you're like you've been doing it so long or whatever, you know?
Yeah, the big thing for me is when I see a trailer for a shitty movie, it gets me mad for like just thinking of the litany of people. Like, so many people had jobs because of this, had to edit, had to be in the background. Like, so many people had to be involved for this thing that just came out to suck, and so many people had to say that this was good and put millions of dollars into this. Like so many people had to be involved for this shitty thing to come on my TV.
Oh, dude, I think about that all the time. Like the boardroom of guys, the green light things that I just think are awful.
Yeah.
Like I'm just saying like product.
Right,
it's like
right.
Some awful flavor thing or
Sure.
something. It's like, who was the guy that was like, make it a go? That's a good
Yes.
idea.
Into production.
You know, like, yeah, there's so much shit like that. Yeah. It's messed.
But so what do you consider, like, I guess now that Campdogzz is like the thing for you, the main focus, I mean, you've been in all of the bands. So what for you does Campdogzz kind of fulfill that other bands haven't, or like at least even if it's not musically, if it's not doing that, if it's like on a personal level, like why do you consider this like a special project?
It's really special because the entire creative process is just me and Jess.
Yeah.
We go in to the songs. Really what happens is she writes the song, and I maybe on one out of 3 songs have some suggestions about parts and where to put them and stuff, and sometimes she takes that suggestion and we actually do it.
Yeah.
But like mostly it's just me thinking of the instrumentation and how to wrap like these acoustic songs into like a larger field of how to put a band under supporting song, you know, and like that to me is just so much more fulfilling and fun and it gives me such a more rounded and like better idea of the song and a better feeling with it. So then when I play the song live, when we get to go play live, like I can play drums in the song, I can play guitar in the song or whatever, and I'm experiencing all of the parts that I've kind of like been able to have my hand in or with her closely, and it's cool. Like, and you know, that's probably the most self-absorbed you could get as a musician, but like that's why it's been so fun for me.
Yeah.
And we are working with a solid touring band now. It's Nick from Sons and Matt Everett from
nice.
He's been in
Barbara
tons
Green
of bands.
and Light Pollution, and
he was in Sons for a while there, and then our friend and my roommate Andrew, and like, you know, like that is the band now.
Nice.
It's the touring band. Like we're still writing things on our own, but we're kind of making baby steps towards a full band environment again. But it's been really fun and special for us to do a band in this way as like a very studio oriented project where you know you can just be creative with all of the instruments and kind of have more control over them.
Yeah.
It's not something that I'm like like a control freak though. Like
Yeah.
I don't want to sound like that. I don't want to answer the question in a way that sounds like I just want to be the puppet master, you know.
Well,
That's when you ask what makes it unique, that's definitely what makes it unique. I've never been able to do that before, so.
Well, to me, that answer kind of sounds. I didn't even think of it that way. I thought of it as like, oh, for once, this is a band where it doesn't like hinge on me. Like it's a lot of the process is another person, and I can just kind of like,
Right.
you know, help fill in the gaps or like, you know, take this to another level, kind of a thing. Like you're a utility player and a person that kind of can hear the song objectively and then take it to a different place. So that to me is, yeah, if you've been in a lot of bands where like you are the main songwriter or one of the main songwriters, it's nice to be in something that there's somebody else's that, and you can just like focus on your instrument or focus on the production or like, you know, take a different role.
Right, and like, you know, it's been another, I think I got kind of like hooked into doing that, or like hooked on to doing that from playing on Aaron's songs, which I never anticipated.
Yeah.
I kind of had like a tunnel vision of like being a songwriter and like kind of like thinking of things that way. And then when I started playing, you know, on Aaron's songs and Wedding Dress and playing on someone else's songs, I got really into it. And I honestly, in the last couple of years, I've written songs, but not at the frequency or like the amount of like mental focus on it.
Yeah.
Like I've been kind of like way more enjoying this other stuff, and I feel like, you know, when I do sit down to like a writing session to like bang out a batch of songs, it's going to those things like will really help that, you know. Like
Yeah.
I think that's a really cool thing, and I'm just excited about it. I really like playing on Jess's songs. I think she's an amazing songwriter, amazing singer, and you know, it's just been really, really fun and nice.
Well, and to go along with Campdogzz as a band and a band name, I've noticed, yeah, over the months, like I'll see you pop up and post pictures of you just being all over the States, traveling and taking these beautiful pictures. So is that what this all kind of came from? Is just like you guys traveling around together, or how did it all kind of start?
Yeah, I mean, it all kind of started with like Jess just came to me with a couple songs because you know, she's from a town in Oklahoma that's very, very small. You know, like one school
Sure.
for K through graduate of high school, like you know, I think like 600 people or something like that when she was growing up there. And so she has this like rootsy, oaky, you know, oaky like the state, not the tree, like
Yeah.
feel to her songs and stuff. And I grew up playing like a lot of like Southern roots music because my stepdad, who taught me how to play, like that's his whole thing. He's from South Texas, so
Yeah.
and she and I were kind of close friends, and like so she knew that like I was kind of into that kind of stuff, and so we just started writing them. And as soon as I started playing on her songs, I was like, just this is it. This is awesome.
Yeah.
Like I loved it from the get go. Like, and so yeah, we just dove in, and we just spent a lot of time in a room, like, you know, like working on songs, thinking about songs, talking about songs, like, and the traveling kind of came after the band was already an idea.
Oh, okay. Nice.
So like it really just started with like, you know, just focusing on her songs and really getting them like hashed out really well. And then we also didn't realize like I grew up, you know, in the Boy Scouts and stuff, and she grew up out in the South, like
Yeah.
really woodsy, you know, and so we just started going on long trips and backpacking and camping together and stuff, and that kind of became part of the band just
Yeah.
because the band is just us two, and those are our two biggest things that we like to do. Like we did a 2-month tour last summer that we saw like I think 8 or 11 national parks like
That's
in the
awesome.
tour, because we just routed them into the tour.
Yeah.
You know, because it's a big part of being in the band. And the people that were on that tour playing with us, playing drums and bass and guitar, like, you know, I don't think that they had, you know, I don't want to speak for them too much, but I don't think they had really been out like in the parks at all.
Yeah.
If like maybe a little, but we were like, yo, this is like kind of part of it. Like, and they were really into it. It's a big part of the band for sure to go out and be in great spaces, great natural spaces, and then kind of bring that energy and that idea onto the stage and to the set, you know.
Nice. That's awesome, man. God, you've been in so many fucking bands.
Yeah. That's what I was saying at the beginning of this thing. My stepdad said, you should write a book on how to start a band.
Yeah.
I died laughing. Right, man.
Yeah, I mean, so can you look back or listen to old bands and do that? Can you do that objectively, or is that like, is there some bands or some songs you just can't listen to, or like, yeah, what do you kind of think of old projects of yours?
You know, I'll be real. 504 Plan makes my hair stand up a little bit.
Wait, sorry, you were breaking up a little bit there. What'd you say?
Some of the 504 Plan stuff makes the hair on my neck stand up a little bit for sure.
Yeah.
You know, I'm sure anybody that their teenage band
absolutely
does that. But for the most part, no. I like to try to like stand by stuff. I don't think I would ever write songs like I did in Wax or in 504 Plan, or even like most of Sons. Just because, like, dude, you keep writing and keep growing up, and you don't necessarily listen to the stuff you did 5 years ago. But
yeah,
I like to try to stand behind it, you know, as just for my own like sanity, just to hope that I'm actually doing something right with it, you know.
Well, and it's funny too. Like, I think a lot of people, at least from my experience, was like, you start playing music, you want the biggest drum set, you want all the biggest, best gear, the most amount of people in your band, and then but you start super small with the least amount of people, and then you like grow into like whatever the most version of that is, and then you end up kind of back to that again. For Dr. Manhattan, it was like we started with an EP, did 2 full lengths, and then ended with an EP. We like started with whatever gear and ended with like essentially like the same kind of thing, like money out of our pockets and stuff. So it's like, it's just funny how for what it seems to me a lot of times can be this thing of like it bookends itself, or like you just kind of end up back where you started.
Dude, it's so funny you say that. I started playing like in 504 Plan like a little like crate, a little crate amp that we bought from Dan from 88 Fingers Louie.
Oh, nice, yeah.
And I just kind of like, you know, the manifest destiny of being in a band, you want like everything.
Absolutely.
So then I guess it kind of like peaked in Sons when we're like have a clarinet on stage and shit. And now, dude, I play a PV Stage 30. It's a 110 little combo amp.
Yeah.
And if I break it or it, you know, fries out from bad stage power, or I lose, you know, leave it at a show in Brooklyn or whatever, it's $30 on Craigslist.
Yeah.
And there's 1,000 of them.
At a certain point, you just start to, I mean, yeah, there's obviously, you can always appreciate good gear and, you know, great sounding stuff. But at a certain point too, you start to realize just like, fuck it, man. I'll just play what it can sound blown out. It can sound fucking loud and nasty and stuff. And like, that's kind of the appeal. It's like the whole kind of feel to it.
It actually, that amp actually also sounds great. And, you know, I should say I have it on loan. Like it's a lender from Nick who records all the Campdogzz stuff. So
yeah,
I can't lose it and I never will.
So you can't leave it at a show in Brooklyn then.
Yeah, but you know, it's more comfortable than, dude. I traveled with a 72 Marshall Plexi head. I traveled with a 71 or 2 twin reverb, Silverface twin reverb. It's just not worth it. Those amps are fragile. They're old. They're worth a lot of money.
Yeah,
and like you learn that when you go out and do it. Like you were saying, like you start out with this idea in your head that you're going to be goddamn Led Zeppelin. and then reality sets in and you're like, all right, I need to downsize here and like, you know, do some stuff that works with, you know, the reality of playing tons of shows a year, because it's not easy on gear, and it's not easy on people or whatever.
I mean, who the fuck wants to travel around with those giant half stacks, those bass fucking cabs? Like, who wants to do that shit anymore? Like, fuck it. What's the least amount of gear possible? Let's go with that.
In Sons, we had the bass refrigerator cab. We had Lemke's Rhodes. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
His Rhodes, his whole keyboard system, 3 guitar amps, like 2 full drum kits, like, and it was a sight to behold.
Yeah.
Dude, we would play house shows in that band.
Jesus.
And it would be like super sweaty, packed place, and like, a good amount from the 6 of us, like playing, and like just the loudest fucking thing you've ever heard in your life. But and so that was really fun. The presence of that band on stage was very fun because it was so much sound.
Right.
But yeah, not worth it. Nobody wants to carry that gear in. Loading in was like a fucking death march. Every single person in that band during load-in looked like they wanted to kill themselves.
And then packing the trailer for that, I'm sure, was a fucking ordeal too.
Oh my god, yeah, the bus.
Oh yeah, that's right, the bus. I forget the bus. Yeah. So you would be the second band that we interacted with, or even the second person I've interviewed that was in a band that had a bus. It seemingly from the outside, it seems like the best possible scenario, but like, what is maintaining one of those fucking buses like, or just driving it?
Maintaining it isn't that difficult. Okay. I think that in Sons, like, we kind of fell short on maintaining it a little bit because we parked it so far away from where we lived.
Yeah.
We parked down on the south side at Iron and 35th, and like, we didn't have time to like go down there and run it and like get the fluids and stuff going like once a week or whatever in between tours or whatever. But for touring in a band where you're trying to, like, in Sons, we're not making the national debt on the show, like we're trying to keep as much money as possible from everything. So the way to do that is to not pay for hotels, to try to not pay for going out to eat or anything like that.
Yeah.
And a bus just gives you a house on wheels, man. And we all had bunks in it. We all had our space under our bunk to keep our backpacks and all our personal stuff. And tour in that band was night and day difference from Tour and Wax. Tour and Wax is like everybody gets out of the hotel room in the morning, goes into the van, and is like quiet and kind of like a little edgy because you're all packed into that van again. And you've done it. Like, when after tour becomes a job and isn't the exciting adventure, like, you kind of need some space from your friends because you've been packed with them and on stage with them and all that. And being in a bus really allows you to do that and to get your own space and to sleep in the same spot every night, which is like a mentally really good thing. And we hung out on that bus, man. We had really, really, really fun times, and tour was always a breeze. There was never a tour in Sons where we'd be coming home and not say, like, man, I wish we were still out.
Wow.
3 weeks or whatever it was, like, we'd say, like, I'm glad we're going to get to eat Sultans or whatever, like, eat, get the good Chicago stuff, but, like, I wish we were still out, That was always what we were saying.
Well, that says a lot, man.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really fun, man. I highly recommend it to anybody that's in a band.
And does the bus still exist? Where is it in the world?
Well, that bus, RIP, broke down finally after 3 years of touring all over in it, at a South by Southwest in 2013, I think. And so now Campdogzz has our bus.
Oh, so you had the same situation, just a different bus?
Yep.
Nice.
Yep. 33-foot international school bus with a bunch of bunks in it and the whole deal.
Man. It still like befuddles me that, like, you don't need any kind of license to drive a fucking school bus. Like
Yeah.
any class C or D or whatever. Like if I got on one of those things, I'd be terrified to drive one of those things.
Well, the first time I drove the Campdogzz bus into Chicago, I knocked into a car, and I was pulling up so that we could load the gear in to leave on a tour, and and like I knocked into the front end of a Chevy, and just was like, "Get shit out of the way quick!" Like, like. And then after that, I just like was super careful, and now I'm very, knock on wood, very, very handy with it. Like 3-point turns, and I've driven that shit through Manhattan and Brooklyn and Philly, everything.
I mean, how do you even find parking for that fucking thing? Like when you're in tight cities like that.
It's there, man. It's there, and the Suns bus was longer than the Campdogzz bus, and we got parking for the Suns bus one time outside of Pianos in Manhattan, right in front. We played Pianos, and we got the parking spot out front of Pianos. And it was one of the craziest nights of my life. There was like all of these like beautiful girls from Spain, like all over the top of the bus, like hanging out on top. Like we're all standing on top of the bus. This is Manhattan on like a Saturday night.
Yeah.
And the inside of the bus was like, there was a couple dudes in there hanging out with the rest of the band, and like they were all passing a guitar around, and like, man, it was incredible. That's the other cool thing about a bus. Like it will draw cool people to you, because the people that like a bus are already kind of common-minded to us. They're more like of a like a hippie like mindset. So they like want to talk to you about it, and they're cool. You meet people out there all the time in a bus. It's really awesome.
Well, shit, man. I feel like we talked about all of the things.
Yeah.
I feel like we've covered it all. The one thing that I feel like we didn't get into, which I would be more than happy to not include or to cut, is the goofy shit between that you guys got into with Fall Out Boy. Now, and I don't know anything about it, so even just for my own personal knowledge, I'm curious. But if you don't want to talk about it, I have no problem not talking about it. Like, well,
like I don't know too much. I don't know specifically what you're talking about. I think that there's just like of my knowledge of it, just lore of like 504 Plan, Fall Out Boy were close, and then there weren't, and then like the whole from where the cork tree is about a lot of that shit. So like I said, I'm very peripheral about any of that knowledge. So part of me is like, I gotta at least ask about it. But if it's shit that's just like real personal, I don't want to pry. So I had to at least just throw it in the air as something. I don't know exactly what about the rest of the band really was I think that all of the rest of the band kind of stayed pretty tight with all the Fall Out Boy dudes.
Yeah.
I think that I don't think that Pete and I really got along at a certain point because of like a couple different things. Mainly stuff with like ladies.
Yeah. Which can always cause problems. I feel like that's the downfall of so many like I feel like you could pull up a like VH1 behind the music, and there's gonna be some like even like two gigantic 80s bands, and there's just some girl that happens to be in between them. It's like ordeals like that just tear bands apart.
There's definitely two. There was two different girls that kind of like got between what friendship was there, which I don't think that I was ever close friends with Pete. I was very close with Patrick.
Yeah.
And I kind of hung out with Joe here, like somewhat through, because Jacus was like my best friend, and Jacus and Joe are tight.
Okay.
So that's kind of what that whole shit is. But I don't think that any of that has anything to do with 504 Plan. I think that he stayed friends with those guys.
Yeah.
And I think that he kind of like had beef with me, but I know him and Nick are still friends. And, Tom was on Fueled by Ramen.
Right.
John was in Panic at the Disco and did a lot with that band, and I know Pete had a hand in that band. So I think that nothing poor came from their relationships. It was all just me.
Well, and funny you should mention John, because he was, I think at the time, he was in that band in Visions of Red with Matt. So during the whole Wakanda Bartlett war, I believe, or no, he wasn't in, he might not have been that band, but he was in another band. So he jumped into that at some point too. So that, I don't even know if I think I only met him a couple times, but like that, whenever I hear his name, I think of that shit too. So
he's great, man.
Yeah.
You used to get him on. I'm sure that everybody that you talk to has like 5 people they want you to interview. But
oh no, you'd be surprised because if they do, they don't tell me, and I'm always thinking of like, well, shit, I only know so many people, so at a certain point, I got to figure out who else I can talk to. So, dude,
yeah, John Walker has had a very cool and strange experience with music. It's pretty. The surrealness of going from being a video dude on an Academy Is tour to being in like a huge band,
right?
Is really strange, and it's something that it is like a cool, not cool. It's not cool. It's an interesting thing to listen to.
Yeah.
To listen to him kind of walk through it, because he has a view of things that's pretty weird and like surreal is the best way to talk about it. And
yeah.
That guy's done a lot of shit, and he continues to write great music.
Yeah.
He continues to do really, really great stuff and play a lot of shows, and he's such a solid dude, and he just had a girl too.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Nice.
Like, I think a year ago or so. I'm not totally sure. Say again, yeah.
Well, and funny enough there, I know the guy who is in Panic now who plays bass, this guy named Dallin, who when we toured in Salt Lake City and played shows out there, we played with his band called the Brobecks, and similarly, just the thing of like, all of a sudden you find out you just know a guy who's in Panic at the Disco, and you're like, what the fuck? How did that happen? Like, holy shit.
Yeah, I was in LA, like, doing some mixing for some Wax on Radio stuff, and I was outside of the studio, walking around, or maybe I went out because I got the call, and Walker just called me. He was like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm in LA. I was like, what are you doing? He's like, I'm in Panic at the Disco now. I was like, what? What? You're what? He's like, yeah. I was like, okay, that's fucked up. So yeah, he had a lot of fun doing that.
So when, and this is, I've had you for a good while now, so we can end on this. When you look back at all this crazy shit, all these bands, all these experiences, like, is there even one thing that kind of highlights it all out of all of it? Is there something that's like a theme that you kind of look back on? Like, what do you, when you look back on all that, or like hear songs, or like have those memories, is it just all kind of fond, or do you have some kind of like view about all this crazy shit you've gone through?
It's all very fun.
Yeah.
It's all, I mean, I think that there's moments in each band that I remember, like, from the kind of whatever lifespan of that particular band, that you can kind of, like, I think anybody that's been in a band that it ends, you can kind of put your finger on the moment that it hit the high water mark, and
right.
And you kind of were like, that was the coolest. That was awesome, you know?
Yeah.
Like, whether it's a show or just a time, like, there was another time that Wax was out in LA mixing, and we got done with the mixing session, and we just went to like a friend's house there. It was like a crazy, awesome, like, stone pool, and we were all hanging out. We were just like listening to good music and just chilling out, like in the Palisades, like overlooking LA. And you know, there's nights like that or days like that being in a band that, like, it just kind of rolls and happens. And then, I don't know, like a month or 6 months later, you realize, like, oh, that was one of the best days of my life.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, that was incredible, you know? And, like, I think that probably the most confusing thing to some people, like, you know, my people say, like, you know, bands that are in the mid level or underneath the bands that are making tons of money. It's like, why do you do that? It's so hard and it's so much work. But it's because, like, you cannot get a better life experience.
Yeah.
If you do it, like, it's top of the, you know, like, it's amazing. It's really fun to just travel around and hang out with friends across the country, and you know, I've been doing it for a good amount of time now, and I have good friends, and in Tennessee and in Kansas City and in New York and stuff, and like it's just really, really fun. So to like pick a point, I don't know, but I think it's all great. I love it. I'll never stop.
Well, again, another little moment of this conversation that warms my heart to know that you're in it. You're in it for the long haul. You're never gonna stop doing this shit.
Big time.
Well, good, man. I'm glad you gave me like an hour and a half randomly at the drop of a hat. Me just hitting you up and you being able to do it. I've been wanting to have you on for a while.
I met Chris from Meatwave.
Yeah.
At Empty Bottle, he worked at Campdogzz show, and
nice.
I got to talk to him for a second about. I had just listened to you interview him.
Oh, okay.
And like after I talked to him, I was like, dude, cool. I'm like excited to. I'm so excited to talk to Nick and excited to like kind of like think about the bands that I've been in, and you know, it's like life moves quick, and like, you know, it's fun to talk with somebody that knows about it, and it's cool to hear that you like appreciated it and stuff.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Well, and for me, like my memory is so shitty, and the way that my brain works is typically I don't think about this stuff, but all of a sudden my mouth just gets going, and I'm like, oh yeah, that was a thing. Like I don't like it takes conversations like these for me to remember some shit. So it's a nice way to go take a stroll down memory lane, and you'd be like, oh yeah, that was fun. Like I think like most times you can just look back and be like, oh man, all that shit, all that struggle and stuff, and or whatever you can. If bad memories are the things that typically pop up, or just like things that are easiest to recall, but then you're like, oh, you know, that actually there's a lot more good than bad. That was, you know what? Well, why was I such a dick about that? That was nice.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like when you're in the moment of things and things hard, it's easy to see the bad, but then when you look back, you're like, man, that was fucking cool. Yeah. Like, you know, all those bands. I loved being in them. I loved playing with all those guys that I played with. Like, it's just been really fun.
Well, I can't wait to show off all the different bands we talked about by putting little chunks of music for people who know of one band but don't know the other, and just get. I mean, part of this too is just showing people new bands and like getting people into new bands and stuff, and for me too, selfishly. So, what do you have anything you want to promote or plug? I know you said you're in Campdogzz now, but is there any shows coming up or anything you want to kick out to the world? To the thousands and thousands of people that listen to this?
Yeah. We're Campdogzz is recording another record right now. We put a record out like almost a year ago.
Yeah.
And we're recording a new one now, and we're leaving for a string of shows in like a week and a half, and we're doing a day trotter session.
Oh, nice.
And we are working on like a couple really cool shows that I probably shouldn't say anything about, but like really excited about.
Awesome.
We in the winter we filmed a spot for we filmed a scene for a Netflix show that's coming out.
Fuck, man, that's awesome.
Here, where we like play, we're like in like a scene and stuff, and like Jess like introduces the band, and like really cool thing, and we're just doing that band a lot, and hoping that, you know, we can keep doing it forever, and keep playing a lot of shows and just traveling around and meeting new friends and hanging out.
Awesome. Well, I hope you don't get any phone calls from Bach anytime soon with bad news about your band. Sorry, I hate to call you, Mikey, but your band's breaking up, and I'm the one that has to tell you, because that's just how it is.
Yeah, I'll just never answer his calls again.
Well, good, man. I wish you nothing but the best of luck with Campdogzz and Wedding Dress and all the shit you got going on. It like I said, it warms my heart to know you're still out there writing and putting out good music, and you're still out there doing it, man. For those of us who aren't.
Dude, thanks, Nick. It's cool to talk to you.
Yeah, man. It was good to go through it all, and I was surprised actually how much I remembered, because like I said, I have a shit memory, so I even impressed myself with the lineage of bands you've been in. So
yes, dude, yes. Musket Arm, I forgot. That band was awesome.
I think I've yet to play a Muskenarm song on any of. I haven't talked about them a lot, but this is the one. It's shameful, but I had a lot of the songs for a while, and I think just like having computers and switching shit, I just don't know if I've lost a bunch of stuff, but I gotta ask Adam and Matt or Ryan. Like, I know somebody's got stuff, so this will be the one that I can actually play some Muskenarm and give people a little bit of. I mean, if there are people listening that don't know what it is, like this is what that band was, and similarly 504 playing and all these, references we've been making. So,
fuck yeah.
Well, good, man. Good luck with all that shit. I hope that I can see this Netflix thing. That sounds fucking awesome.
Cool. And let me know, like, if you ever are feeling coming to a show or something.
Yes.
I'd love to throw you on the list and hang out and stuff.
Awesome, man. This is a great chat. Thanks for giving me an hour and a half, man.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Thanks for talking.
All right, buddy. Have a good night.
You too. Bye.
See ya.
Anyhow, I know it's not right to make space, 'cause you can. But far enough around to bend the thoughts that don't need to set no. And you can. Don't you just laugh because you don't know what to call it. I could run back, but I don't want to be that small. 'Cause all us dogs tend to take a time in dark road. It's a good thing being on some ain't looking to be moved. Anyhow, you can ask for what you want, if what you want I have. Anyhow, you can ask for what you want, I have. Don't you feel bad? I know you tried to have it on you. And I could run back, but I don't wanna drink that tall. 'Cause all us dogs tend to take a time in dark road. It's a good thing being on some ain't looking to be loose.